Hey everybody, today I'm going to be working with the ScanNCut 230 DX. This is the Disney edition. So what we're going to do, we're going to flip this up, we're going to turn it on. You hold it about for 3 seconds and it'll turn on. And we're going to flip this down. You can just tap on the screen. That's just going to tell you that it is going to move. So we're going to press OK. So when you open it, you have 2 compartments. You have this first one, which will hold the blades that come with it. So you have a fabric one, and you have a vinyl one. So when you get them, you're going to take this little piece off. And how you set it in, you just come over here, drop it in. I like to push on it just a little bit, not that hard, but just to make sure it's in. And then I'm going to close the latch and put that up. The second one will hold your things for the drawing kit. So once you have your blade in, what we're going to do next is we are going to pull a file from our USB drive. So you should save the SVG prior to turning it on. So we're going to come to our screen. I'm going to show you a little bit of buttons first. So what we have here is our home button. So if you go to pattern and you want to go home, you can press the home button. This is to load your mat. And this button is for when you're cutting something and you want to pause, or it didn't do right and you want to pause it really quick. So love that button. So when we come to the screen, we have our Wi-Fi. And if you haven't put it on Wi-Fi, I suggest you do. When you put it on Wi-Fi, it allows the updates to pop up automatically to tell you that there is one. So when you come to Wi-Fi, you would turn it on, and then the setup wizard is where you would go, and it would search for your Wi-Fi, and you would just put in your password if you have one. So this first button is patterns. In patterns, it's the built-in designs and the ScanNCut. So right here you have shapes, so we're just going to click on that. And you have all these different shapes. You have 180 shapes. So we're going to go back. And you have some designs that are built in. So when you click on that folder, it brings you to a bunch of different folders. And inside those folders, there's even more designs. How awesome is that? So this one, it has 106. This one, it has 14. You also have tags. So if you wanted to make your own tags, you have pre-cutouts for those. Some borders. You also have fonts and borders. If you have the Disney ScanNCut, it will have built-in Disney designs. So in this built-in Disney design tab, let me find my stylus. You have, so these are SVGs, which we'll cut out. You have layered ones, this is a layered one. So you would just select your size. You want to make sure you select your size before, because it is a layered design. So when it is a layered design, you'll have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or however many layers there are. And you start with A, and then you'll just keep on going, vice versa. And that's how you would do that. That's why it's important to set the size before. You also have princesses, Frozen, cars, and these are rhinestones. So built-in Disney rhinestones. Those are like line designs. More rhinestones. So this cute little tiara. You have fonts. So these are quilt blocks for quilting. more fonts and cutouts for paper and vinyl. When you come over here, you have scan. So scan is when you are scanning something into the machine. So when you go over, you have the roll feeder, which when you click on it, it'll give you step-by-step how to attach the roll feeder and what to do. You also have read and emboss. So that's those. Then you have retrieve data. So retrieve data is where you're going to bring in your designs from your USB, from your computer, wirelessly, etc. Test is going to be your test cut to make sure it is cutting right on your vinyl, because all vinyl cuts different. You have a settings, which is your language, your unit, millimeters or inches, your cut area, cut speed, cut pressure, your fills, basically all the settings in your design or in your machine. So I have my SVG file saved on this cute little dress. So I'm just gonna come to the right of my machine, and when we come to the right of my machine, you can tell that I have a USB port and I have a computer port. So I can plug it from my computer to my ScanNCut. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna plug it into the USB drive. Okay. So once we have that in, we are gonna come to our screen. So let's start with this bag. So I already have it downloaded to my USB on the side. So we're gonna hit retrieve data. And when you click retrieve data, you have 4 options. This is designs that are saved into the machine itself. This is your USB designs. This is a cable from your computer to the ScanNCut, and this is wirelessly through Canvas Workspace. It is a free app. You can download it on canvasworkspace.com. So we're just gonna hit the USB, and I'm gonna find my design, which is beautiful, and click on it. And when I click on it, I'm just gonna hit OK. So when you get to this part, we're gonna go over the buttons. So the add feature allows you to bring in designs that are built into the machine and from a USB or anything like that. So that you can bring in shapes, fonts, or letters, anything like that. The edit screen is actually 2 screens. So let's go over that real quick. So this is the first edit screen. And what you'll have is you'll have a zoom feature, which is great when you want to see if your cut lines are going to go out of your workspace. You also have an undo button, which will just go back. These 3 buttons are for when you have more than one design. So if these were separated and not grouped, then you would use this to select it, or these. This will select the whole thing, and this will just select which one you want. This is trash, and this is move. This will allow you to move it. You also have a zoom button on this feature. And you have settings. So your settings have cut area and background. I'll go over background in a second. So the second edit screen is object edit. And this is where you're going to size it, rotate it, add more, mirror image, all that sort of stuff. So your first little box is your size. And we're actually going to size it right now. So your height should be, we'll just do width. Our width wants to be, 4 and 3.96. So if you ever want to move the height without moving the width, or the width without moving the height, what you would do is you would press this button, and it allows you to size up one without sizing up the other, which is a great option. And you also have settings, which have your millimeters, inches, cut area, and background. You want to be careful when you are sizing it, especially with letters, that you don't use this button too often, like a drastic amount, because it will disform your letters. So our next button we have is an add button, and this will allow you to add more than one or however many more you want. This third button is the rotate button, which allows you to rotate it 90, 10, and even 1. This is your seam allowance button. So it's great for appliques and stuff like that. And you can also change the size of the seam allowance. This is your mirror image. So when you're doing HTV vinyl and stuff that's going to adhere to cloth or fabric or anything like that, you want to use this. So what it will do is it'll flip it. So when you cut your vinyl, it should look like this. I know it's kind of hard to tell, but it should be backwards, because this is your sticky side, and that's the side that's gonna adhere to the cloth. So when you flip it, it's gonna turn out right, and you're gonna be able to see the letters correct. So the next button we have is this button, and this button is all your fills. So you have patterns, you have a couple there, you have the spacing and the direction. This button allows you to do an additional line, so if you want, say, it to cut better here than others or something like that, then you would do an additional line. You can add different amounts. This button is your offset, and this button is your dotted line spacing. So these grayed out buttons are for when you have more than one design. So this will group them together. When you have more than one design selected, these will be grayed out and these will be open. For you to be able to size them, you are going to have to group them first and then size them. So that's group. That is weld, so we'll weld two shapes together. And this button is your alignment. So how, if you had a lot of letters or jerseys, numbers, that would make it to where you are using the most amount of space possibly can, and you're not wasting any vinyl. So your settings includes cut area and background. So what we're gonna do, we have our size and we have our mirror image. We're going to select OK and OK again. So we are on this screen. These three buttons right here, this is your, it will align shapes to where you're maximizing your vinyl to the most. This is your scan button, and this is your settings button, which has cut area, pattern, interval, and background. So we are actually going to start scanning. So what we're going to do is we're going to scan. So in your box, you have two mats. You have a purple and a blue. The purple is the standard tack, which I use for heavier vinyls, things that I don't want to come up easy. The low tack, I mostly use a lot. It's I use it for vinyl, for sticker vinyl, paper, fabric. You want to use this on paper because the paper will actually stick to the mat and it'll be hard to rip up, and it will rip the paper if you have the standard. So what we're going to do is, so I don't know if you can really see, but like this is a thicker fabric than this one. It's hard to tell, but it is very thick. So on this thinner piece of vinyl, I think I said fabric, but on this thinner piece of vinyl, I would use the low tack. But on this thicker vinyl, I would probably use the standard tack. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab my standard tack and I'm just gonna sit it right there. And I'm actually going to line up the corner of my vinyl to the corner of this. So I'm gonna flip this up real quick. And I like to use a brayer instead of a squeegee. A squeegee works also, but a brayer makes sure it isn't going to rip your vinyl, because if you do apply too much pressure with a squeegee, you will rip the vinyl or paper or whatever you're sticking down. So just roll it, and the brayer allows you to use as much pressure as you want and need without hurting or affecting the vinyl. So we're gonna make sure that's really good and tacked down. And you wanna make sure you get all the bubbles. Yeah, I know it's hard to tell on camera, but if you had bubbles, you would be able to tell. Okay, so we have that down, and next we are going to put it in our machine. Load the mat in our machine. So I know it's hard to see, but you see this little ridge right here, and you have one on this side too, right there. Your mat is actually going to fit in between those ridges. So once we have them fit in between the ridges, we're just going to press our load mat button. And it's asking us check the feeder roll position before cutting and then press OK. What it means is we're making sure this black piece is all the way to the right. If you were in roller position, it would be a little bit right here. So we're just gonna press OK. And it starts rolling in our mat. Make sure it's down. And I'm actually going to scan in my vinyl. If you had a smaller piece like this is great for seeing your cut lines and if they're going to be inside of your vinyl. You do want to make sure you have plenty of room back here so your vinyl can feed through. So after the screen, I'm going to see if it's going to hit my cut lines. I know I have a big piece, but I'm just going to show y'all for reference. So we would go to edit, and we have our zoom option up here. When you're in zoom, you have these, which move your design. This moves your pages. You can delete it, and you have an option to go up all the way to 400%. So that's huge. This also moves it left and right. So we can see that my design is in my vinyl. So we're just gonna hit OK and OK and OK. Now we are at this screen. So this screen, you have an option to go back, but if you press please select, you do not have the option to go back. If you are stuck in this screen, it doesn't matter what you press, or if you're even going to cut, and then you can go back and it brings you to this screen. So if you're ever in a pickle on this screen, just hit whatever and then back. So we're gonna press cut, and it gives you this option. Now, when you're here, you want to check your settings. So I'm going to hit settings, and it brings you your cut speed, your cut pressure, manual blade, cut mount. So you can see that these are all default. This one isn't. Now it is default. You can scroll down, and we are going to make half cut on. So we're also going to have half cut pressure auto. You always want to have it on auto first, and then if it starts to need work, then you start manually adjusting it. So we're gonna hit OK, and you can also see that half cut is on right here. So first we are going to do a test cut just to make sure it is doing well. So you also have settings, and that'll do your speed, pressure, etc. You have this button, which is your move, and it'll move your design. You have this, which would change this shape. Let me just tell you, if it can do a circle, it can do anything. And this is your scan button, which it will scan your vinyl in. So we're gonna hit start. So now our test cut is finished. Once it's finished, I'm going to unload my mat, but I'm not going to take it off, the vinyl off the mat. So you're gonna have to like kind of gleam it against the light to find your cut area. So I know it's hard to see, but I can see my little circle right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to actually pick that up, and you can see that it cut perfectly. So now we are ready to cut. If it did not cut perfectly and it was kind of hard to pick up, you might want to consider changing your settings. So after our test cut, we're just going to load our mat back in, making sure it didn't move or anything else. And we are going to click start. You can see that the corner was coming up, so I just rubbed it down. So it's done cutting, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unload my mat. And I'm gonna look for the cut lines and see if it did okay. Yes. So after I make sure it did okay, then I'm going to rip up my vinyl. Next step. So what I like to do next is I like to find the edge of my design, and it's gonna take some light to be able to see where the edge of your design is. And once you find the edge of the design, you're just gonna cut off the excess. I like to cut off the excess because then I'm not wasting as much vinyl. So then we have this piece, and we're just gonna set this aside for later. And next is weeding. So I'm gonna flip this up real quick. So what I like to do is I like to take the test cut that's already picked out, and then I just drag it like that. So I have a start. And then I slowly start to peel it away. You want to kind of go slow on this part so you know if you're missing anything or something didn't pull up. You always want to peel it back on itself. Let me just do that. And it should look like this. I know it's kind of hard to see, but like that. Once you have it like this, we're going to pick the insides out to make the letters. And if you need to have a light or something, you can use your machine's light. That's what I do most of the time. Come to my lovely either Solaris or Luminaire, because the light is so bright on it. That is an awesome machine, y'all. And you can even use this with those machines, including the 10 needle, for appliques and stuff like that. So when you're done, it should look like this. And now we are going to take it to our iron. So I'm going to take my bag and my design, and I'm going to even it in the center where I think looks good. Think about right there. I'm just gonna press it down. I like to unzip my bag because I feel like it lays flatter. Then I'm going to take my Teflon sheet. I'm going to lay it over. I'm going to take my iron or heat press, and I'm just going to start rubbing it on it and holding the heat over it. I do this for about 10-15 seconds, get it good and hot. Let's see if that's good. So the way I test it is I take my side and I just start peeling it up. Now you can see the letters started peeling up, so I'm just gonna lay it back down real quick, and I'm gonna press it again just to make sure it's good and sticking. So let's start to peel it up. There we go. Now once I have the clear piece off, I like to press it again. You can never be too sure. And once I have it pressed, there you go, and there's your bag.